Whoop FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Welcome to the Wrestling Mat here on Whoop FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. You can call us here at 614-5553. This is the area's only live high school wrestling talk show. We're it. And our guest here today is former Bradley High School coach, Steve Loxton. Good morning, Steve. How are you doing?
Good morning, Ron. I'm doing great this morning.
You know, I wanted to mention, Ron, while we're here, is that we need access to a lift to put up the new banner that has the state champions for wrestling on it. And if anyone's listening out there, a 30-foot lift, is that correct, Ron?
Well, yeah, I need at least a 30-foot. I think it's probably 35.
Right. And it's a wonderful problem to have, is that at least every other year we fill up a banner and have to get it made, and we need to lift it up and put it up in the gym. So anybody out there that might have access to one, they can let Ron know, and we'll see if we can get that banner up.
Well, and Coach Loxton, for you who, we have new listeners that don't know a lot about high school wrestling, and then we have a lot of our parents who are at tournaments will listen. We record this, and it'll be on YouTube about Tuesday of next week. Coach Loxton was the first champion at Bradley High School. What did you weigh then?
I weighed 167 then. So I wrestled 138 as a sophomore and 145 as a junior and 167 as a senior, and then stayed at 167 in college.
Steve, let me ask you this question. Wrestling, when I was going through high school, was non-existent. How did you discover wrestling, and when did the program start? About when did the program start at Bradley?
Bradley's program started, I think, in 1973 is when they cranked it up.
Okay.
And
I was still there. I just wasn't noticing them.
Well, it's brand new. They just kind of they just kind of did it. Put just assistant coaches from football in there. Not a lot of attention given to the sport then. It just was just basically to have a sport.
Did the expertise come when Turner Jackson?
That was it. Absolutely. That changed everything.
I believe he was hired in the county the same year I was. That would be 79.
Yeah. What happened with Coach Jackson when he was at Lakeview Fort Oglethorpe, and he was out of a two-time national champion in college, and he was out of college and at that time. And what happened was that Louis Offord was the football coach at Bradley, Coach Offord. And Coach Offord had lost several kids to Cleveland High School that were football players at Truett. And one of those players was a young guy named Jeff White, who went on to be a very good football player and a wrestler at Cleveland High School. And that was like the last straw for Coach Offord. He was tired of losing kids. And the reason Jeff White supposedly went to Cleveland at the time was he wanted to also be a wrestler. And he was a wrestler, and he enjoyed wrestling. And Bradley High School wasn't a big wrestling school. And so Coach Offord got frustrated and went after trying to find someone, and heard Coach Jackson's name and his credentials, and that's what happened. So I got the ball rolling. Next thing you know, Coach Jackson is at Bradley High School, and that changed everything.
Mm-hmm. Fine fellow. And he's still there.
Yes.
He is.
And so he was your head coach, right?
He was. He was I walked into my 8th grade, his first year. I was in the 8th grade at Bradley Junior, and I walked into my science class, and there was a guy up there going to be my teacher, and I came to find out later that was Coach Jackson. And I had a wrestling shirt on one day, and he asked me if he said, do you wrestle? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, are you good? I said, no, well, I don't know.
I don't know if I am
good, but I like wrestling. And he said, well, do you know who Dan Gable is? And I said, no, sir. I never heard of Dan Gable at that time. And he was just trying to fill me out and question me. And I found out later what kind of wrestler he was. In fact, that year he actually was at the wrestle the Southern Open that year. And it was a very prestigious tournament then. People from all over came in to wrestle it. And he beat a guy named Ricky Stewart, who was a national champion wrestler, Division I. He beat a guy named Mike Sheets, who was a 2-time national champion, Oklahoma State. And that's when I figured out Coach Jackson was a real deal, that he could do it.
Mm-hmm. And started listening.
Oh, yeah, I listened all the time anyway. I was scared of him.
Well, Coach Jackson's and doing a great job as AD down at Bradley High School.
Yes, he is.
Now, see him on the wrestling mat. Since he's got his knees fixed, does he get back on there on the mat much? Or
No. When Coach got out of wrestling years ago, when he actually retired for good, he didn't come around much anymore. Every once in a while, he'll come in the room and do something, maybe once every couple years, if that, and just come in and do a little clinic or something for an hour, and then step back out of it. He doesn't really have much interest in coming in the room a whole lot.
Right. You said something that maybe our listener says. You started wrestling at 138, went up. Is that a common thing for a wrestler? Is that, of course, you're a high school kid, and there's some huge growth spurts in there. I've seen some kids that were little bitty guys, and next thing you know, they're big heavyweights. So, tell us about that weight change in high school, how that affects coaching a team.
Yeah, well, I followed a pretty normal pattern, I think, as far as my growth from I was a pretty heavy kid in the 7th grade. I was a fat little fella, and I was wrestling 139. I was very short and pudgy, and that summer I'd lost a bunch of weight. In the spring of the summer, I'd got down and wrestled 103 in the 8th grade. So I was tremendously thinner in the 8th grade, and then from there it just grew like 103, and then 119, and then it continued, like I said, in the high school, and just continued going up like that. And that's common. I remember in the 9th grade, I wrestled a kid from Truett named Kevin Jones. And Kevin Jones was later my teammate in high school. We were buddies. But he was at Truett. He was the quarterback on the football team. He was a short guy, real muscular. And we both weighed 119. We wrestled each other 2 or 3 times that year. And in the next year, our sophomore year, I went to Bradley, and Kevin stayed at 119. I went to 138. The next year, I went to 145. Kevin stayed at 119. Our senior year, Kevin was a state runner-up at 119. I was 167. So, not everyone grows, it gets, a lot bigger through high school. But in general, my 20 years coaching, I found that kids are going to skip 1 or 2 weight classes each year as they grow in high school.
The sport in Tennessee, the last 20, 25 years, if you won a state championship, you was either from Bradley, Cleveland, or Saudi Daisy. That's pretty much now before they, and that's after they split the private schools out. But even when the private schools in, Bradley, Baylor, Cleveland, Macaulay were all the state champions.
Father Ryan,
yeah. And so I know that Bradley's first big matchup coming up is next Thursday night.
Right.
They're going to wrestle Baylor. They wrestled McMinn County and Chattanooga Central, and that was just I called it warm up. I know McMinn County tries, but just hasn't been able to put out that great team. Chattanooga Central comes and goes, from time to time.
They have good wrestlers.
Yeah.
The occasional really good wrestler, but the team, they don't seem to have them all at the same time.
Bradley sees Hickson on Tuesday night, and they're in the small school division, has been very good in that small school division, so and usually has some good athletes. But Baylor will be a big challenge for them. I know for a long time you did and did not wrestle Baylor. What do you think about the matchup?
Oh, Baylor's a good team. Baylor's like Bradley in some ways, is that a lot of tradition, a lot of state titles on the walls, and good coaching. They have a good system there where they have good coaching at all levels: high school, middle school, and kids club. And they have great facilities, as you would expect.
Yes.
And just every advantage you can have, and of course they have the advantage that the private schools have of bringing in some pretty good kids in high school to fill the holes that you have. But we all have 2 or 3 or 4 holes, and then if you can bring in some ringers in there to fill those holes, you're a pretty darn good team.
So something in Baylor, Macaulay, if they need a 160 pounder, they can go out and actually physically recruit a 160 pounder anywhere in the country.
Yeah,
they can come to Bradley and recruit, as you well know, come recruit your guys.
Yeah, and that's what caused. I don't want to get into a big thing here today about that history with Baylor and Macaulay and all, but it was frustrating several years in '93, and when we were wrestling Macaulay in the state finals, when you look at all my kids from Bradley Junior High and Truett, where they all came from, and then look across the mat these kids were facing, and they're just from all over Tennessee, and 4 different states represented besides Tennessee, so 5 states total in that lineup, and they got kids from all over. It's frustrating to see that happening. And but we also met through the years, different things, different events, and we more than held our own and did just fine with it. But it was the principle of the thing, and that's a long time ago. And I stood my ground. Coach Jackson, when he was the head coach, he decided he wasn't going to support those teams that are recruiting kids anymore from other publics. And you get a kid like, say, for instance, Matt Keller that comes through, and you wait and wait and wait as a public school coach for a kid like that to come through. And then he does, and all of a sudden you got the private schools knocking at his door, showing his parents pictures of their campus and having them come on campus. And it's frustrating to see that. I understand what they're doing. They have to compete against it with the other private schools, and I understand what they're doing, and we're on their side of the fence. I may do the same thing. However, on my side of the fence, as a public school teacher, you get what you're given. And so it's a little bit of an uneven playing field. But nevertheless, I didn't dwell on that too much. I just kind of got my kids together and worked hard and did the best we could.
Yeah, I know Bradley's added McCallie in the last 2 years and beat them both times. Hasn't beat Baylor yet.
Come down to the last match both times. They beat exciting both years with McCallie.
Cleveland today is at the Woodstock tournament down in Woodstock, Georgia. I think Bradley's been to that tournament before. Bradley has wrestled Northwest Whitfield, Dalton so far, and they've had Cookeville High School, all wins on all those in Cleveland. Next Friday, Father Ryan will be there wrestling Cleveland. Usually a tough team. And then the Cleveland Duels on December 12th. Bradley will be there for the first time in some years. So Bradley, Cleveland, Archer, Father Ryan, Pope. I can't remember all of them. It's usually Christian Brothers. Saudi comes on. That'll be a tough tournament. Archer alone is a tough tournament. Bradley went down and wrestled Archer in that first week, and they scored quite a few points on Archer. Didn't beat them, but a lot better than they did last year. Walker Valley is wrestled at Whitfield and Dalton. They were at the Hickson Duels on the 28th. I don't know how they did there. They wrestled Cookeville, and then they're at the Ooltewah tournament with Bradley today. And so I don't know who all's at that Ooltewah tournament. I didn't look it up,
No, it's not real tough this year. There's a few good teams there, and some of the teams have good individuals on them. But that's kind of the same pattern I used to follow when I coached. People used to kind of jokingly give me a hard time about going to the Huntsville tournament every year. We'd go to the Huntsville Invitational the first weekend in December each year, followed by the Cleveland Duels usually the next weekend, and the Bradley Invitational. And I just kind of had an idea and a theory of what I want to do with the kids and kind of ease them into the season and the type of competition we needed to face early and kind of build some confidence sometimes and yet present those tougher kids with some good competition, because certainly at Huntsville didn't have a lot of loaded up teams, but definitely every kid would get one or two really good matches because teams like Grissom and so that's just the pattern that I followed as a coach, and I don't know if Ben's changed his way of doing things or not, but this is certainly more like I used to do it as far as starting off with Ooltewah this weekend.
Yeah. I think Walker Valley, like I say, they're at Ooltewah today too. And so folks, you're listening to the Wrestling Mat here on Whoop FM 99.9, or you can call us here at 614-5553 today if you have any questions about high school wrestling. State rankings are out. Steve, I know that being a coach, that rankings don't mean a bull to you.
Yep.
But it's just a snapshot. I always call that, and Bradley Central's been ranked number 1 in the public schools. Cleveland number 2, Beach, Halls. There's some really new names up in the top there. Saudi Daisy number 5, Wilson Central, a good team from last year that beat us in the duels. The Wilson Central, Tennessee High. Matter of fact, Bradley's going to their tournament this year. Tennessee High's up towards Kingsport.
It's Bristol.
Okay, well, that's even farther.
We won our first state title, actually, at Tennessee High.
Oh, okay.
In Bristol, in '94.
Blackman, Stewart's Creek, which is a new program, and then William Blunt, a new name toward that top 10. And I think I heard Ben say that, the rankings are nice, but he still has to beat Cleveland High School because they're the defending state champs. And I still think we'll have a very good team this year.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt. Cleveland, what Cleveland has is they have good kids, good coaching, good facilities. Everything I talked about Baylor a while ago, Cleveland's pretty much got the same type of setup, and that's through years of them preparing and doing that in that way, and it's been very successful. I lost my train of thought. What did you ask?
I missed the train a lot of times.
Yeah, well,
Cleveland's the team to beat.
Cleveland has a mindset. What they have a mindset that I think that we used to have, where we just kind of expected to win, and if we weren't the best team on paper, well, we're going to find a way to win. That was the mindset. Didn't always work out, but a lot of times we just felt like we're going to find a way to pull this off and make this work, and I think a lot of confidence comes with that mindset, and I think Cleveland's had that the last several years. Last year we were as good as Cleveland, I think. Bradley and Cleveland as far as on paper, what we had, and yet they have a little bit more swagger, a little bit more confidence, and that they're going to come through and get it done, and they did. And there's a lot to be said for that. That's that intangible thing. It's not technique. It's not double eggs. It's not conditioning. It's just this. A lot of stuff's important, but it's that little extra something that they have right now. And until Bradley can find a way to take that away, it's going to continue to be Cleveland, and until we can overcome that.
Right. Jake Yost doing a great job over there. Former Saudi Daisy wrestler. Surprised he didn't go towards that Saudi Daisy job.
Well, yeah, when that came open, I certainly thought that Jake was in the running. He was definitely in the running. I got a lot of friends in wrestling. I made some phone calls. I was just curious, and I think that's the time that Cleveland kind of made a decision: are we going to try to keep this guy or not? And so they made the necessary steps to keep Jake Yost in their system, because I think they would have lost him to Saudi Daisy had they not done what they did.
A very good wrestler when he was Saudi Daisy.
And a really great guy.
Talking about last year, Bradley beat Cleveland in the regular season.
That's right.
Which may have been a good thing or a bad thing, because Cleveland did have that swagger, and when it got time for the duels, the regional duels, we had to be, we lost to them there, because they probably wasn't going to get embarrassed twice.
Yeah,
I think they had that swagger, as you say, and I think that's what beat Bradley in that. I think Bradley had an equal as good as teams. Didn't get the few wins, a lot of time. We said this last year, that you sort of know that the Chris DeBiens, there's a win for Cleveland, and TJ Hicks was going to be a win for Bradley. You knew those guys. It's those other guys that could be win a 3-point decision or a 4-point decision,
or not get pinned.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, that's right. That's a win sometimes.
Sure.
People don't say their names as much. They're as important to the teams as anybody, because, as you say, they don't get pinned or they get an upset, and the whole match turns around. Because we can sit here and say that, most likely T.J. Hicks was going to win at those matchups. Chris DeBien was going to win. I mean, he was one of the slick wrestlers I'd seen him sometime. You talk about techniques, and he sort of had some.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so he was Cleveland's first 4-time champion?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Bradley has one?
Yes.
Those are tough to come by, aren't they?
Yes, well, they are. They are. Definitely.
And Chris DeBien's now at UTC?
He is UTC. I went and watched them wrestle their first. They had a dual meet. I went to challenge matches, too, up there. Of course, with Heath coaching there, I go and watch UTC. Right. I went to UTC myself. Right. I go and watch them when I can, which is quite a bit now that I'm not coaching. And I watched challenge matches, and Chris looked pretty good. And then I went back several weeks later and watched them wrestle Stanford out of Palo Alto, California. And he wrestled a kid that was good, a good, solid college wrestler. And that's the best I've seen Chris look. He just looked like a solid, not a solid high school wrestler, but a solid college wrestler.
So what weight class is he at there?
He's at 33.
33. So he hadn't put on a lot of weight.
Not too much, no. Just you gotten stronger like you do in college. You just have to kind of get even leaner because you put on a little bit of muscle.
So he's not going to redshirt?
Oh, no, he's wrestling.
Oh.
No, he's wrestling. He's competing.
Yeah.
And doing well. He's starting.
Well, that's good. We send some wrestlers to the Super 32, and, we've got good wrestlers at Bradley and Cleveland, but to win there, it's a pretty big time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a big deal. Super 32 has grown over the years.
I know that some of our local wrestlers went and finished well.
Yeah, I think Maine was second. David Maine was second there. we've had some guys do well there.
Yeah.
But yeah, to win it. Well, Chris Deben won a legitimate national tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Legitimate. And boy, that just said a ton to me when I saw what he went out there and done, and I thought he really is next level,
right?
Next level kid, and he's tough.
Yeah, and you like to see those kids come through here, and there've been some really great wrestlers come through over the years. Cleveland, Bradley, and we've had some at Walker Valley now. Going back in your mind, watching Cleveland, Bradley, and Walker Valley, who are some of the kids that you remember being just really great?
Oh wow,
Rusty Blackman.
Oh yeah, I mean I could talk about Bradley all day.
Yeah.
Bradley guys, I know them, so intimately and close,
right.
and of course Rusty was, he wasn't one of my favorites, and
went on and wrestled for Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State,
that's pretty big.
Yeah, that's pretty big. While he was there, they won 4 national titles during his time there.
Yeah.
And he had a really good career there, and just a you remember these kids that were tough and hard nosed kids, but you also remember the ones that were just good kids, good people,
mm-hmm.
good citizens, and he was one of those, just an outstanding person.
Right.
And,
went on and he come back and coached for a while, but he went back into what's he doing now?
Rusty followed his heart. He taught a little bit. He has another degree from Oklahoma State also, and he don't use them. He's still getting training and things. He's actually an EMT now. He's a firefighter. He has 3 or 4 different titles he does. He loves that stuff. Mm-hmm. Those kind of things. He's certified in underwater rescue and all these different things, but that's what he does for a living. That's where his heart is. He loves it. And I'm proud of him.
Quinn Gibson sort of followed that too, didn't he?
Well, Quinn went in the military, Navy, and I'm not sure what he's doing now.
Well, he was studying to be EMT or something of that nature, a paramedic or something of that nature, and another great wrestler, Bradley.
Yeah, he was one of my best I ever had. 4-time state finalist, 3-time state champion, 2-time outstanding wrestler in the state. Super
Not
tough.
many losses during his career.
No, very few. He lost to Kevin Ward in the state finals, who was an Oklahoma State wrestler also, 3-time state champion. And no, Quinn had very, very few losses.
I remember some great matches that Danny Coleman was a good champion for Cleveland, and who was Tinsley?
Blake Tinsley.
They fought for years,
Yeah.
and Blake beat him once, but I think Danny finally done the best out of him every time. But it was 1 or 2 points.
Yeah, there at the end, he beat him by a couple points each time, and then there at the end, the region finals their senior year, Blake actually beat him pretty solid. Decent, 10-6 or something. And then in the state, the next weekend, we get upset by this young kid. I remember who it was. Maybe Bundy. But anyway, get upset in the semifinals by this kid didn't know much about, and he beat Blake, which was shocking. Well, then that kid goes in the finals and beats Danny Coleman, who was defending state champion.
Right.
And so it's like, oh, this kid is for real, But Danny was awful tough.
Danny and Blake wrestled for the state championship.
Yes,
down at UTC. I remember that.
Yeah. Several months later, after their senior year, Blake went out to took him to Cleveland, Ohio, to the senior nationals, and he had a heck of a tournament there. He got actually cut down to 103, and to get to wrestle, and he ended up finishing a legitimate 3rd in the nation in the senior nationals, and just that's a real feather in his cap. He'll always have that, He's all American.
Yeah, there are just so many great wrestlers there, and I'm trying to think their names and drawing blanks on all of them. I've seen a million faces, but they're like I said, I lost my train.
Oh yeah, I do it all the time.
I want to hear the wrestlers from other teams that y'all just over the years have just been in awe of.
I remember the first guy that I remember just being impressed with. He was not much older than me, but at the time it seemed older than me. When I was in the 8th grade, was Johnny Lennon was at Cleveland, and I'd go and watch those guys wrestle. And boy, Johnny Lennon was just some kind of a wrestler. He was just they had a bunch of good kids. They had Michael Bowerman and Clark Crawford and Mark June and Johnny Lennon, and just a great team. And they won the state in '81, I believe. But Johnny would go out there and just demolish people. Just so much confidence. He was a great thrower. He was an upper body wrestler. And just very impressed with what he could do. And he was a OW in the state tournament, 2-time state champion. Yeah. He just dismantled a kid in the finals his senior year that was also a defending state champion. There was no tech fall then, but the best I remember, Johnny beat him by over 15 points, 17-1 or 8. It was a beating. The kid's name was Houston, and I tell you what, Johnny was tough. And, years later, it was odd because Coach Jackson was just the greatest coach ever to me. He was a great coach. He taught me everything. But Coach Jackson's technique, he wasn't a thrower. He had everything else he would do, and he was awesome with it. Unbelievable. But Lennon was a thrower, and I just liked the way those throws looked too. So I wanted to learn how to throw, and he actually over my freshman sophomore years taught me how to throw. I'd go to Cleveland's wrestling building because in the summer it was hard to get people to wrestle from Bradley at that time. A lot of guys wouldn't do summer wrestling, and so I wanted to. And I got to know Johnny just a little bit, and he would call me, and he was actually a freshman at UT wrestling, and I was a sophomore in high school. And he would meet me up at the Cleveland's old wrestling building, right where the new building is now. It was an little old building that was baseball and wrestling shared it. And go in there, it'd be 100 degrees, and we would wrestle. And he would show me throws. He would toss me and throw me and do it again and again, and then he would show me how he's doing it. And we'd wrestle some more, and he would, and just beat me up, just showing me this stuff. And it's hard to bounce off your back 80 times in right. one workout. But, what happened over that time period was I was beginning to learn how to throw people. And so then, I go back to wrestling the next year in high school, and all of a sudden, hey, I can throw. These guys don't know how to stop it. These guys weren't wrestling with Johnny Lennon all summer. They don't know how to stop these throws, and I'm not as good I wasn't as good at he was as Johnny was at throwing people, but I was good enough to toss them around people that are here. And I tell you, I used that throughout my career. Throughout my last 2 years, junior year, senior year, and college even, I learned to throw and foot sweep and trip and things I learned from him in addition to the stuff that Coach Jackson taught me. It kind of gave me extra weapons in my holster, so to speak.
I think the best throw I remember seeing was a wrestler named Jacob Bailey. Oh, yeah. And at the state tournament, he threw, what was the Saudi Daisy kid? He walked it, little cocky thing, Turbo.
Oh, yeah, Turbo.
Turbo come prancing across there to Jacob Bailey, who had a vision problem.
That's right.
Legally blind.
Right.
And he come prancing across there, and Jacob threw him and pinned him in just seconds. And the route was on that day. Saudi Daisy had beat you that year.
Yep.
And you come back to beat them for the state championship.
That's right. We beat them up. We beat them.
Oh, I think, and maybe a painful thing, is the first home team loss came from Saudi Daisy that year.
Right.
I think you'd won 109.
17 years.
17 years. No one had beat Bradley in 17 years on your floor.
I think it was 130 something. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. I don't know.
A lot.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. And Saudi beat you that night.
They did.
And beat a good Bradley team.
Yeah.
And
we won both state titles that year.
Yeah. You came back and just Saudi Daisy, you just went through them like butter. I was sitting in the stands going, I thought this was going to be a great matchup. I'm sitting there going, well, we got to win here, and well, if we could not get pinned here, and because I know Patrick Benson, who
he had lost in the dual meet.
Yeah, and you go
Dakota Bromley beat a really good kid that night.
Yeah,
beat a state champ.
So that's pretty. That you talk about swagger. It's sort of that mystique when you came into the Bradley gym. If you were a girls' basketball team, you've seen Jim Smitty and the years and years of championships that he had and wins, and 2 years back-to-back undefeated in girls' basketball. And then you come to Bradley and say, all those banners, Deb's talking about we need a lift to put banners. And there is a big, long list of banners of medalists and state champions and then state championships in there. It's pretty intimidating.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. When you walk in the front entrance of Bradley there, the first trophy case you see as you walk in and give your money or your ticket is the wrestling trophy case right there in front of you with the state championship trophies in it and stuff. And to the right of that is a case that I had built years ago to put the individual state champion pictures in. And of course, we don't, I bet there's 8 or 9 still that aren't in there.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm shocked by that. I've begged kids, I've begged parents, hey, let's give you some recognition. Let's get your name up there. Let's get you a 5x7 in there. We'll put it up and we'll get your credentials on it and really give you some. And I'm shocked at some of the, especially mamas, they'd want their child's picture in there. Oh, that's my baby.
I guess I need to go get the pictures.
Well, I begged. Good luck. Well, I've tried.
If you go down the side hall towards where the men's bathroom is, there's a case of your regional.
Yeah. Yeah.
And unfortunately, they're not. It's got to the point now they're just sort of stacked in there. There's so many of them. When you talk about high school wrestling in Tennessee, you have to talk about Bradley being a dynasty for many years. You have to talk about Maryville being a dynasty. And I think you're comparable to that. You had one time I remember that Bradley had been in the state duels finals every year and either finished first or second in the state for years.
Yeah. We from 93 to the year. We didn't go in 96, 97, but from 93 to 2011, except for those years I mentioned, we went to the state tournament. I don't know how many times that is. It's quite a few, and never wrestled a consolation match. I was always proud of that. We never wrestled a consolation match where you get beat and have to come back through for third place. We were in the finals every year we went, finishing first or second. I was proud of that. That was kind of a thing, a streak we didn't want to break.
And Cleveland High School, a lot of times was your opponents. It was Bradley and Cleveland,
Clarksville, Soddy Daisy, Cleveland.
That's right.
Yeah.
Clarksville was a rough place to wrestle. But
I liked it though. Hey, I liked it.
I didn't like the day that we all about went to jail over there on one side.
I remember that too.
Yeah,
I remember that too. But
I remember this Clarksville dad telling me he was going to carry Turner Jackson out of the ring. I went out of the. I said, "Oh,
Yeah.
That'd be a pretty good." And then he looked at Matt Bailey and says, "I'm going to get you next." I went, and that might be that might be worth the price of admission.
Yeah.
Well, I just have to say Tony Cordell about got me in jail in Clarksville.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
I remember that. It was exciting though. I liked it. I liked the idea of going into their house and taking their trophy home with us. I was kind of it wasn't their trophy, but it was in their house. They had the most fans because of that, and the purple shirts and they were good people. They loved their team like we love our team, but it was always fun to go in there and kind of take their lunch money.
Yeah, and not being a Bradley guy, I hate to give Cleveland a lot of credit, but Cleveland's had a very good program. They've been very competitive against us, and in the early days, they sort of did help Bradley try to find a coach and try to get things. And I think they loaned a mat or two early in those days.
That was Coach Shriver days.
Yes,
when Dwayne Shriver was there, and he did an awful lot to help get this going around the area. He loved wrestling. He still does.
Dwayne usually comes in on Saturday morning. He's got a grandson wrestling down in Georgia today.
Okay.
And hopefully that you will consider coming in every week. We're going to be here every week. You're welcome anytime. Dwayne and you could have some really good conversations. And
yeah, I'd love to.
We'd love to have you here, and because there's truly your knowledge of wrestling is unbelievable. All right, real quick, looking, and I don't know how many people know. You see any state champions in the Cleveland Bradley County area this year?
Oh yeah. Yeah. There are some tough kids. Cleveland's team is younger than I've seen it in a long time. They have the Ezra Taylor kid, and they have some Tristan Blansett.
Tristan, yeah,
really good kids. But I say Ezra Taylor. Is he back?
Yes.
No,
he graduated.
Yeah, Tristan's what I'm thinking of. Tristan Blansett. But apart from that, they have some pretty young kids in their lineup. But they're good young kids. They're kids that the middle school has trained well and are ready to roll.
Well, yeah. If you look at the state rankings, it has Boyce Pond. I don't know the kid, but he's a 10th grader at Cleveland at 106. They got him ranked. They got Philip Freeman from Cleveland ranked at 13. I'll try to flip through here real quick. Tristan's ranked number 1 at 126. There's Colton Landers.
Colton Landers, that's what I was thinking
he's
of. Yeah.
Number 2 at 138.
He's a tough kid. Who's in front of him?
Corbin Hurley at Tennessee High.
I don't know Hurley, but boy, I tell you what, I think Landers is a pretty tough kid. I'd put money on him if I was having to bet right now.
Joseph Munzo from up at Walker Valley, been a good kid. They got him ranked 6. He was a good wrestler last year, and I was trying to find him more of the Cleveland. And I think that's where Cleveland probably really rolls off after those lower weights this year. They don't have the big kid. They don't have what was Coran. I never said his name right.
Yeah, Kennedy.
Right, and then you got Jalen Martin at Walker Valley at 195, and then that's it. And then of course Bradley has got a murder's row. I remember those years we had your first 4 or 5 or 6 kids won a lot of matches for you. Then you just had to you had Withrow and Johnson and I can't remember all that. Hunter Randolph. And
that's tough when you have guys in a row like that.
some of those guys were crazy, but they were pretty good
Yeah,
wrestlers.
yeah. Sometimes that's the best ones.
Yeah, but now if you go at 106, they got Trey Hicks ranked third in the state. Trey has not made weight.
Right.
He has got stronger, and it made him a little bigger. And so I think he will be. He's on a weight descent program now, and I think by mid-year when the second half wrestle off, I think you'll see Trey back starting at Monster. But they got a Byron Bishop who looks pretty good. He's a senior.
Yeah,
106.
He's a good kid too. I really like. He's paid his dues.
He is a nice guy.
Yeah, if Trey can get down there, Trey's in a situation I've seen before where, I really think that pound for pound that Trey's the best 106 in the state. He'll win a state title, or he'll be JV. It's such a weird thing because the way the Bradley's lineup falls, he can win a state at 6, but he can't start at 12 or 19, or as you bump up, or whatever. The weight classes are different now, 13 and 20. But
his brother's at 13, and his brother's
state champion.
He's a state champion.
And I watched those two just brawl in practice. Trey goes right with him, so they're both just really tough.
So Bradley's got TJ at 13, ranked number 1.
Yep.
Probably a favorite.
He's a beast.
And he's a nice kid. A little cocky.
He's intense. Oh yeah.
Cowboy boots.
Not a nasty cocky, but when he's got a little strut when he walks.
He reminds me of on the mat when I watch him wrestle. He reminds me of Keller. Matt Keller, in that he's out there to win. He's going to win. He's not just going to win the match. He's going to win that situation if it's in practice and do situations or that particular takedown defense. He wants to win that situation and every time. And I think that's what makes him so tough.
Ryan McElhaney from Bradley's down at 120.
Extremely improved.
I think he wrestled up last year, and I think that he just wasn't good at 126.
Yeah.
Now, tell me, you being a former wrestler, is that from 120 to 126, how big is that difference in that weight? I mean, do you think it's a lot of difference?
No. The way I used to illustrate it to guys is they'd worry about their weight class and going this or that, and they'd say, well, I lost at for instance, 126 when I'm really a 120 pounder. And I used to tell them, look, if you're tough, you're tough. There's no magic 5 pounds, and they'll make you tough or not. I said, let me ask you this. If you're over here in the hall and some kid comes up, and you don't want to fight in school, obviously, but if some kid comes up and just hits you in the back of the head and you have to defend yourself, are you going to worry about how much he weighs? Do you weigh 135 or 130? I don't know if I can defend myself or not. You're going to do the job. You're going to defend yourself regardless of this extra 5 or 6 pounds. It doesn't matter. You show me a kid like Keller. Keller was a studly wrestler at 130. Well, if I'd have bumped him to 135, guess what? Stud. If I bumped him up 2 weight classes to 140, guess what? No difference. If you're tough-minded and you've paid your dues and you technically and everything else, conditioning, you're tough. Regardless, I don't think there's anything magic about a kid's going to be really tough at 120 and really terrible at 126. I don't believe
Dean Travlo, no matter what weight class he was, he could have whipped a lot of people.
That's right. That's exactly right. Tough is tough.
I always like to see him fold people. I don't know what the technical term was for that, but he would pick the leg up and pull their head down, and there was nothing they could do to stop it.
Yeah, extremely powerful. Dean's senior year, I wrestled him, and I used to wrestle kids in practice some, and when you're a coach, you don't want to try to beat up on a high school kid, a little bit, because you're a little more experienced, whatever, a little bigger. But I kind of let kids have stuff. Let them have a single leg. Let them have this. Let them have a seatbelt position, or see what they can do from there, and kind of coach them through it. And Dean shoots in on me, and I kind of let him. I don't really square up my hips on him, and let him kind of have a single leg. He locked his hands behind my thigh, and I just kind of sprawl out. I'm going to just get a stalemate here and start again. And he starts kind of winching me in, like a winch on the front of a Jeep, just pulling me in slowly. So I put a little more hips. Well, he's still winching me in, so I put a little bit more pressure on, block his knees. He's still winching. I said, holy smoke, is this kid strong? I knew he was strong, but, he's 145 at the time, won the state that year at 145, and the power, I was about 185 then, probably maybe 190. I was a little heavier than I am now. And he pulled my hips in. I had to go to something different, try to slick him with something, but as far as power, that's the day that I thought, oh my gosh.
And his arms were exceptionally long for his height, and I think that added some to it too.
yeah.
But he would just fold people like a cardboard box.
Deb used to sit in the stands, and people said, "Oh, that kid's on steroids." And Deb was his teacher in the 3rd grade.
4th grade, he walked up to my desk one day and says, "Look, Mrs. Moore, I have a 6-pack in the 4th grade," and pulled that shirt up to show me. And I thought, holy moly. And the only person faster on the playground running was his brother.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But when he went to UTC, he came to me and he said, "Mrs. Moore, they make me swim. I'm not comfortable swimming." That was part of the training.
Right.
And he was not real comfortable with that. And I said, "Just stay close to the wall, honey. Just
Yeah,
stay
that's
close
right.
to the wall. Keep swimming. Keep swimming."
You know, Dean's become one heck of a mountain biker. I've always mountain biked and done things, and through high school, you know, kids see me mountain biking and stuff, but he never really took to it. He'd play with it, mess around, and do things, but since he got out of college wrestling and finished, he got into it a little bit, and then a little more. I hear a little more. And then last year was the Black Bear Rampage that Scott's Bikes puts on up at the Whitewater Center, and Dean goes into his division, and I read the results. Dean won his division, and that's a big deal. I mean, it gives you your time, your splits, your average speed for the ride, what you're averaging. And I looked at his numbers with my mouth open, going, "My gosh." That kid has, I mean, he's a man now, but man, has he, just whatever he does,
Just an
competes
excellent person.
he's going to
Excellent
excel, whatever he does. And,
Yes.
You're
What
always
is
going
he
to call him a
doing?
kid.
What
I
is he
will.
doing now? Do you know?
Last I heard, he's selling cars. He wanted to be he's a salesman down in Chattanooga at a car dealership, and he was doing well. With his personality, though, and his likability factor,
Yeah.
he'll do well whatever he does.
Yeah. He's
He
great
does.
guy.
I mean, he has a degree.
He does. He has a degree. He
Master's
sure does.
degree, I think. Even.
Maybe.
Very intelligent child.
Yep.
132, they've got Josh LeCoe, but LeCoe's went down to 26.
LeCoe looks good.
And Hunter Parker. I think Hunter Parker will be ranked somewhere along
Parker
the
looks good. Parker should be ranked right now.
Knox Fuller, number 138.
Two-time state champ.
Two-time state champ. A possibility for a 4-timer.
Absolutely.
He's a quiet guy, though.
He is
a very quiet
Well,
guy.
he's opened up some
Has
this
he?
year. Finally, yeah. I couldn't get a word out of him the first couple of years there. I'd grab him when he was a freshman. I grabbed him, and like I do kids, and they'll wrestle him at. I always like to grab him, roll around with him, and see what they got and what their personality is. And I'd kind of, like I do, I'd joke with him and talk about, this 8th grade Russian has this young Bradley, and he really wasn't too talkative. He didn't want to play the game too much with me, as far as talking and joking around. And I'd kind of tilt him to his back and stuff, being bigger than him, and I'd tilt him and put him on his back. But I could tell right away he had really good feel, really good hips, even coming up as an 8th grader, and that he didn't like to be put on his back. He would really fight me on it, and really had a lot of. He was really competitive, and I knew right then this kid's going to be really something special.
Right. Going on through the rankings real quick, just this is just fun stuff right now. Knox Fuller, of course, 45. They had Caleb Atkins. Caleb Atkins left the team.
Yeah, he gave it up.
And there's I can't think of the new kid, Moats. Moats will be at
Red-headed guy,
45. Donnie Byer, they got him ranked 3rd, and he beat the 2 number 1 guys last year back to back in a week apart. I think he's pretty slick.
Yeah, he's awful tough. He may drop too. He may drop down. We don't know.
I
After
would
Christmas.
sort of expect that he might,
Yeah.
but a friend of ours, Tucker Russo, down at Saudi Daisy. How many years has Tucker been seems like he's been
About
there
7. He's been in high school about 7 years, it seems
That's
like.
what it seems like. He's a tough
He's a very
athlete.
tough kid.
Yeah, and then we get 170. We got a couple of good guys, 82, but our big guy, 195, Brett Brown, finished 2nd in the state last year to a really tough wrestler. I think Brett's got a good chance of winning the state
He
championship.
does.
When you say a good chance, you still got to compete. You could.
Right.
There may be somebody that we haven't heard of.
There may be a Tucker Bolton out there
Yeah,
somewhere.
I remember my son who came home. He said he was at 189. He says, "I think I can. I might be able to win this year. I might be able to beat. I can beat him. I can beat him." And he come on in a couple of weeks and had his hang, and they said, "There's some new freshman here. His name's Tucker Bolton.
and nobody in the room can beat
He
him.
don't know how to wrestle, but you can't beat him."
Yeah.
And,
I love to see him grab those ankles.
Yeah.
he was,
Tucker, because everybody in the room knew it was going to happen, but they couldn't stop
Yeah,
it.
he was so long.
When he picked
Long
up
and-
Billy Swan and carried him around there in the state championship, and Billy was afraid he was just going to drop him on his head. The only thing he was worried about, talking about tough wrestling. I know my son was a bigger kid, 200 pounds, not a great wrestler, good kid, but not a great wrestler. But he was there, and sometime he would wrestle David Graham, 130 something pounds, and just and I think you would put them together saying is, well, you got to be able to move. If you can move Will, even though he's not a great wrestler, if you can move him, and David Graham was slick enough to do that.
Oh, yeah.
David Graham, a 3-time state champion.
3-timer.
Could have been a 4-time if he hadn't broke his ankle on the last play of his freshman football game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
Never know.
DJ Adams come out of nowhere last year.
Yeah.
Average wrestler all year long, a good wrestler, and he got to state tournament, got beat in the first round, then pinned everybody else through the tournament.
Yeah.
That was pretty impressive. I think hopefully he's got his motivation now he needs to win that.
He has more confidence now.
Nick Boykin from Riverdale.
Yes.
Will be a pretty good match.
National champion.
Yeah. So
he won Fargo freestyle and Greco at Fargo. He won them both.
Maybe he'll lose weight to 220.
Maybe.
Well, folks, that's about it for us here on the wrestling mat. Thank you, Steve Loxton, for coming in here, former coach of Bradley Central High School. We hope you return here on Saturday, and Dwayne will be here. If you don't go watch his grandson wrestling, you'd understand that. If when yours gets there, come on in, and we'll have different people come in and from time to time. But you're welcome anytime. And as the matches get close, as the Cleveland-Bradley matchup gets close, will be a lot of comparison.
Sure.
And pointing and fingering and yelling and screaming. And, Dwayne likes good wrestling. The other Cleveland folks say, this is Bradley's year. And I go, well, we got to win.
That's right.
And Wilson Central probably thinks it's their year. And Halls has a great team. Saudi Daisy. Saudi Daisy's always tough to beat.
They are. Good tradition. Much like us.
Yeah, they and I know Steve Henry's gone now. You and some of the old coaches now are gone. All
the grandfathers are gone.
You young guys are gone now, but there's somebody bringing candy in. You may not want to leave that.
It's like banana bread.
Well, Steve, thank you so much. And any final comments?
No, I appreciate you having me. I enjoyed it, and I'll have to come back.
Well, I hope you do.
All right.
Hey, folks, we'll see you next week on the Wrestling Mat.